This tabletop game is about space fascists and chaos gods. It's loved by celebrities and art school dropouts alike. This group is about to enter battle, and right now, they're preparing their troops. What they're painting are Warhammer figurines. And while they might look like gray blobs, they're actually an integral part of a tabletop wargame that's been dominating the space for nearly 40 years. It's grown so big that it's now traded on the London Stock Exchange, with a market cap of over £5 billion, about $7 billion. But what makes this game so addicting that people will throw hundreds of dollars at unpainted figurines? That Henry Cavill wants to produce a TV series based on it? And how did a tabletop game, one most of you have probably never even heard of, become a billion-dollar empire? Warhammer set itself apart early on, and a big part of that has to do with these little guys. These are Warhammer figurines, and the company behind them and the game itself is called Games Workshop. To play a game of Warhammer, each player needs a unit and a set of minis to represent them on the battlefield, and you can only get them through a small collection of official Games Workshop channels. This is a Warhammer store, formerly called Games Workshop stores. There are now over 500 of these worldwide, and this is where a new Warhammer player is born. So, unfortunately, Games Workshop has a strict policy preventing their retail employees from giving interviews, but that doesn't stop me from going in, oh my god, these are expensive, and buying some minis. Each comes with statistics like hit points and abilities listed on a card, and most of them come just like this, bare bones and gray. But that's part of the appeal. Painting these figurines and customizing your army is an integral part of the hobby. Warhammer stores even host painting events. If you go in as a newbie, you'll likely be offered the chance to paint a mini for free. This is the first step in the indoctrination strategy. This is the one I painted. I've been calling him Gung Ho, but that sounds like a drag name, so let me know in the comments what I should actually call him. In a way, it's a brilliant strategy. Creating an artistic and truly personal connection to the figure, you feel emotionally tied to the game, and you kind of feel obligated to play it in a good way.
You have people who put a lot of effort and a lot of time into making their models look nice. And so when you have an event, there's a good feeling. You're playing against a guy who's also put hundreds of hours into making his army look good.
I really grew to appreciate the painting aspect of it because it's part of the hobby that you can do when you have no one else around. It's a nice way to relax and be creative.
A game of Warhammer is relatively simple in concept. Each session is a mission, generally picked from one of the officially published modules from Games Workshop. Players take turns conducting actions over a series of battle rounds, the outcomes of which are determined by a tape measure and a roll of the dice. Yahtzee!
There's 5 rounds, and each player has a turn in those rounds. There's a command phase, which is kind of where you would make decisions or have abilities. Then we start moving models. I had this floating drone. During the movement phase, I'm allowed to move him, however many inches he can move. Then we move on to the shooting. And then there's what's called a charge phase, and then we actually do the fighting in the fight phase.
Another big part of the appeal of the game is the deep lore that's been developed over 40+ years. Originally, Warhammer 40k and Warhammer Fantasy Battle were satirical, progressive, and punk.
In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. The Imperium of Man has sort of fallen into decay and corruption.
The game was born partially from a hatred of the Thatcher government, with the creators not afraid to take jabs at the future owner of Britain's favorite public restroom. Goblins in the game carried banners with Thatcher's face on them titled Maggie's Death Banner, and an evil empress was named Magritta. The game's Space Marines were overtly fascist, only existing to wage war. But as the game's popularity grew, so did its caution. It slowly lost its overly satirical edge in favor of a more palatable game, albeit one with a vastly expanded lore. In 1991, control of the company moved to Tom Kirby, who had joined the company as general manager in 1986. He opted to pivot entirely to Warhammer and aimed to broaden the game's customer base. In 1994, Kirby took the company public, and barring a few dips here and there, kept the company steadily growing for the next 20 years. But in 2013, everything changed. In the last 2 years of his tenure as CEO, Kirby launched the Great Master Plan, an initiative to cut costs and increase efficiency. Store staff was cut down, product lines that weren't selling well were axed, and an online store was launched. The plan worked, and Games Workshop's stock has continued to skyrocket the last 12 years, growing from around $10 a share in 2012 to over $200 a share today. In addition, they're now operating over 500 stores worldwide, which all sell Warhammer figurines, host games and events, and serve as local hubs for the Warhammer community. And they've done it all while running almost zero traditional ad campaigns, relying instead on their physical retail presence and word of mouth to spread. To put their explosive growth into context, let's compare Warhammer to its closest tabletop analog, Dungeons & Dragons. D&D, while formerly part of an independent company, is now owned by Wizards of the Coast, a subsidiary of Hasbro. Hasbro also notably owns Magic the Gathering, Transformers, and most importantly, Peppa Pig. In 2022, Hasbro had an operating revenue of $5.86 billion, but only about $1 billion of that came from tabletop gaming. And Forbes estimates that Dungeons & Dragons accounts for roughly $150 million of that. Compare that to Games Workshop the same year, with an operating revenue of roughly $500 million, almost all of which comes from the Warhammer franchise. So while Hasbro has much higher revenue overall, D&D is nowhere near the cash cow Warhammer is, which has led Games Workshop stock to grow 100 times as much as Hasbro's over the past 15 years. All this tells a clear story. Wizards of the Coast isn't really growing, and Games Workshop is catching up fast. And all of that with a far smaller player base. It's estimated that D&D has over 50 million annual players, while estimates say Warhammer sees just north of 1 million. So how did they do it? Because there's more to Warhammer's meteoric rise than a few efficiency changes. Games Workshop deliberately chose to adopt a strategy of slow customer growth, focusing on gameplay, community, creativity, and storytelling. Everything that makes Warhammer Warhammer is monetizable.
I mean, they want you to buy not only the model, but they want you to buy their paints, they want you to buy their brushes, they want you to buy their glue, etc.
The Warhammer retail locations, like the one I went to earlier, serve as hubs for a Warhammer community, hosting regular game nights and painting events, and having a physical meeting space that helps create and maintain loyalty. The stores also sell everything you need to get started and keep playing. Minis, game maps, paints, brushes, story modules, etc. It's a completely different experience than other tabletop war games like Star Wars Legion, Infinity, and Bolt Action, all of which might find disparate events at independent game stores, but none of which have a hub around which the whole game is centered. I did a painting class, and I had fun, but I was told I wasn't allowed to film anything, and we'll get back to that. I was, however, able to go to Carcosa Club, a tabletop gaming co-op in Greenpoint, Brooklyn, where I was met with a passionate and friendly community. The love for the game is clear, and you can see why players have found a sense of community here and at the Warhammer store. This is their sanctuary. And Games Workshop knows that, which is why it works so hard to cultivate that kind of experience for fans, constantly iterating on game mechanics and releasing new content. There are limited edition miniature drops, rule updates, lore additions, all of which serve to evolve the game and keep players investing in the hobby and adding miniatures to their ever-growing gray piles of shame that I'm told every seasoned player has. I keep knocking over this Christmas tree. Also integral to the company's success is the multimedia empire they've created through licensing deals. These days, you don't have to even play the tabletop game to be a fan of Warhammer. 89 video games, 400 books, an animated series, and an upcoming live-action series produced by Henry Cavill are just some of the multimedia projects surrounding Warhammer. These projects last year accounted for about 6% of the company's revenue, or $42 million. And Games Workshop maintains full creative control of the IP, so it can ensure the lore stays consistent across projects. It's a far cry from something like Star Wars, which has media in basically every format, but much of it is non-canon or legends, some of it's semi-canon, and some of it's retconned. And I don't work at Lucasfilm, but I'm pretty sure Kathleen Kennedy doesn't keep apprised of what's going on in the world of the X-Wing tabletop game, and isn't gonna make sure it's gonna tie directly in with the new Starfighter movie, starring Ryan Gosling, coming May 2027. But the unsung heroes of the Warhammer multimedia empire are actually the fan creations. Let me tell you a little story. I'd known of Warhammer since I wandered into a Games Workshop in Cardiff in 2013, but the first time I ever became interested in the lore was in 2018, when a fan animation called Astartes hit YouTube. It was a short CG animation, the creation of one man, Syama Pedersen. It told the story of a group of space marines boarding an alien vessel in search of something. The story was widely praised and is, according to many, single-handedly responsible for creating tens of thousands of Warhammer fans. Over the next 2 years, Syama released 4 additional episodes of the series to universal acclaim. You really should go watch it, but oh, what's that? You can't? The only version of Astartes easily available is a low-quality re-upload. The official thing now sits behind a paywall on the official Warhammer site, where a sequel to the series is promised in 2026. Over the years, Games Workshop has tightened its grip on fan creations, issuing takedown requests and copyright claims. The company took it a step further last year, releasing a set of regulations that completely bans unauthorized fan creations, all in the name of protecting the IP. In 2021, it launched Warhammer Plus, a subscription service hosting animations, fan art, painting tutorials, and more. To me, and many Warhammer fans, this reads as an attempt to control fan fiction, which sort of flies in the face of the point of fanfiction. In making this video, I called my local Warhammer store to request an interview and was met with a resounding no. I was, however, given an email address, press@gwplc.com, to which I sent this email, explaining I was producing a video about the game and would love some input from them. This is the response I got.
Hello. We do not do interviews, nor do we talk to the press.
Why do they even have a press email then? Games Workshop seems so cagey toward anyone wanting to engage with the community in a way that it doesn't specifically sanction that it might actually be alienating both long-term fans and potential new fans alike. These fans aren't making money from their creations. They're not making them hoping to get anything. They make them purely for their love of the world that Games Workshop has created. And rather than embrace them, or better yet, promote them, Games Workshop chooses to shut them down, lock the ones the company likes behind a paywall, and hold a threat of lawsuit over anyone who might dare to create something related to their IP. Please don't sue us. To bring it back to a galaxy far, far away, it's why there are a billion Star Wars fan films, fan fictions, fan artworks, and Disney, a famously litigious company, lets it happen, and sometimes even promotes these projects, because it all serves as promotion for their brand. People just want to put their own mark on something they love, and as long as nobody else is trying to sell Star Wars toys, that's okay. As Henry Jenkins said in his 1992 book, Textual Poachers, fanfiction is a way of the culture repairing the damage done in a system where contemporary myths are owned by corporations instead of owned by the folk. In other words, people make fanfiction because they want to tell their stories and they want to see themselves in the media that they love. And Games Workshop hates it. The thing is, I really liked playing Warhammer, and I honestly would continue playing it, and might. And graciously, despite my being a complete novice, the players at Carcosa Club took me in and helped me start playing. This is it. This is how Warhammer grows. Not through flashy marketing campaigns or dumbing down of the game. People feel a part of the community, bringing them together to play and creating lasting memories that will bring them back for years to come. Whether they're a painter, a lore nerd, or just curious, all are welcome to the war. I commend Games Workshop for the community it's built and the story it's created. I admire its ability to do it all while retaining control of its IP and focusing on the quality and connection over explosive growth. The company's story shows that the all-too-common mantra, grow fast and break things, isn't the only way to build a successful, sustainable company. Sometimes the slow burn works just as well. But if Games Workshop keeps fighting against its own community, I fear its candle might someday burn out.